Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the launch of UKIP's general election campaign. In common with the other party leaders, I did not expect this election. And I want to basically map out why this election has been called. It's been called for cynical reasons. It is about the protection of the Conservative Party and not for the good of this country. Indeed, we were caught by surprise, mainly because the Prime Minister gave a clear commitment that there would not be an election until 2020. She then performed one of the biggest U-turns in living memory, mainly because she saw that the Conservative Party were 20 points ahead of the Labour Party in the polls. It is flagrant opportunism. But this election has been called, and we in UKIP will fight it with vigour. In many ways, it is an election which is on our turf. It is a Brexit election. We also believe that a whopping Conservative majority will only serve to put Brexit in peril. Hordes of Tory lobby fodder will allow the Prime Minister to backslide, safe in the knowledge that she has the votes banked. And we are not convinced that the Prime Minister, who campaigned to remain in the referendum, will get the deal that the British people want. She is already beginning to backslide on immigration, with the government now telling us that immigration will run at today's level for the next decade. She has said nothing to guarantee our waters and protect our fishermen. And she will not rule out paying a huge divorce bill once we have left the European Union. UKIP goes into this snap election determined to hold the government's feet to the fire on Brexit. We will act as the government's backbone in these negotiations. Indeed, if voters elect a UKIP MP, they can be sure it will be a true Brexiteer, someone who has campaigned all their political lives for a free, democratic and independent Britain. We are not the fly-by-night Brexiteers. Indeed, if it wasn't for UKIP, there would have been no referendum in the first place. And if it wasn't for the hard work of UKIP activists, then we would not have secured Brexit. Now, naturally, the question I get asked most by journalists, by you guys, is what is the point of UKIP after Brexit? I believe we have to see this through to the end. We are only halfway through the war. It is a job half done. We must continue the fight. Therefore, UKIP will be fielding candidates all over the country at this election. We will also be prepared to put country above party. To that end, I have asked branches to step aside in this election in seats where there is a chance, where a true Brexiteer, regardless of political affiliation, could be replaced by a Remain MP. This, I believe, is a principled stand that will ensure that we get the kind of Brexit that people voted for on June the 23rd last year. And what is this kind of Brexit? It is a Brexit whereby we control our own borders. It is a Brexit which allows us to sign our own trade deals all over the globe. It is a Brexit whereby we do not pay a divorce bill to the European Union. And it is a Brexit which ensures that real democracy is returned to the United Kingdom. Finally, it is a Brexit whereby our fishing communities are protected. UKIP will go into this election with a bold and radical manifesto which is fully costed. We will tell you not only where the money will be spent, but also where the money will come from. For example, we will have a clear commitment to slash a foreign aid budget that is costing the British taxpayer in the region of £30 million every single day. And we will redirect the money saved and plough it into our NHS. Indeed, we will reaffirm our commitment that under UKIP, the NHS will remain in public hands and free at the point of delivery. We will also ensure that the National Health Service is not an international health service. We will also be committed to rebuilding our beleaguered armed forces and also putting more bobbies on the beat. We will go into this election with a commitment to tackle the repulsive practice of female genital mutilation. It is a national scandal that there has not been one single successful prosecution, even though this barbaric cultural practice has been illegal for nigh on 30 years. We will also be asking that people show their face in a public place. We will be the only party in this election with a clear commitment to cutting immigration. Yes, leaving the EU technically allows us to control our own borders, but polls clearly show that people want to see the numbers cut. Let me put this simply. Too many people are coming to our country every year. Last year alone, a city the size of Newcastle came to this country net. The gross figure is roughly the cities of Liverpool and Aberdeen put together. We believe that this has not only led to a stagnation of wages, particularly in working class communities, but it is also bad for community cohesion. Indeed, recent reports have shown that we are becoming a more divided society and that integration is failing. We will also campaign to do away with the antiquated first-past-the-post system, which gives the two establishment parties an unfair advantage. This electoral system, I would argue, does not belong in a 21st century functioning democracy. Therefore, we will call for the replacement of the first-past-the-post system with a system which is fair and proportional and one that ensures that every vote matters. We will also be radical on constitutional reform. The time has now surely come to do away with the antiquated House of Lords and replace it with some form of elected chamber. There also has to be both financial and democratic fairness for England, and this will mean an English Parliament. We will be radical because UKIP is at its best when it is radical. We will be bold and lead the debate. We will continue to set the agenda just as we have in recent years. So anyone hoping that UKIP is going to fade away from the political scene is going to be bitterly disappointed over the next few weeks and, indeed, I predict, confounded over the next few years. We have a great opportunity in this election because it is an election on UKIP's turf. It's a Brexit election and we will have our candidates out there knocking on doors, delivering leaflets and ensuring that UKIP gets members elected to the House of Commons at this election. Thank you very much indeed. Now the Q&A. Darren.
Darren McCaffrey from Sky News. Well, first of all, you said that you are going to run this election. Can you please tell us where? And second of all, Nigel Farage resigned as leader after the last general election when he failed to win his balance.
Didn't last long.
Didn't last long. If you fail to win in whatever constituency you run, and UKIP get no MPs, in fact, the vote goes down, will you consider your position as leader after this election?
Well, firstly, I'm not going to tell you where I'm going to stand because we're going to announce it tomorrow. Okay? And as for me resigning, Look, UKIP has got a great future ahead of it. It really has. In terms of membership, the party is pretty much where it was at the referendum. We're going to be financially secure. I think we're in with a chance of winning a number of seats at this election. We will be targeting sensibly in terms of financial resources and manpower. And if we weren't successful, and by the way, I don't believe for a second we will fail. I think we will have seats in the House of Commons after this election. Would I consider my position? Would I resign? No, I don't think I would, because I think UKIP has a fantastic future ahead.
Let me put it this way. What is success? What is success?
Hang on, you've had one. You've had
What
one.
is success?
Michael, how are you? Oh, by the way, can I just say, congratulations, because in many ways this is your election. If it wasn't for the work you've done and your investigative prowess, then maybe this election wouldn't have been called in the first place. So we should call this the Crick election.
Well, I'm not so sure about that. Let me get the microphone.
Okay.
Only a couple of months ago, you were telling us how your heart was in Stoke-on-Trent. You were committed to Stoke-on-Trent. You were going to buy a house in Stoke-on-Trent. Shouldn't you stand in Stoke-on-Trent Central again? There's so many people there disappointed if you don't.
Well, look, as I say, I'm going to announce tomorrow where I'm going to stand at this election. What I will say about Stoke-on-Trent Central is that we cut Labour's majority in half. It's only about 2,500 majority there. We have a fantastic branch in Stoke-on-Trent Central, and they will be out campaigning, and there will be a candidate there at this election, but I'm not prepared to say whether it will or not be me.
And can you tell us who the manager of Boston United is? Do you know who the manager of Boston United is?
Why Boston? Right, next question.
Hi, Peter Walker from the Guardian. One of your candidates for London, Anne-Marie West, has described Islam on Twitter as evil, but it's not just her. Also, Gerard Batten, who obviously is one of your MPs on the senior figures, wrote a blog in March calling Islam, not just radical Islam, but all Islam, a death cult born and steeped in 1400 years of violence and bloodshed. He said the terrorists are the vanguard of Mohammedanism. They set out to cow the non-Mohammedan population so that moderate Muslims can get on establishing Sharia courts. Do you believe in this, or are you content to see your party perhaps pushed into a position where it's appealing to anti-Islam?
Well, firstly with Anne-Marie Waters, the National Executive Committee is meeting this afternoon, so we will be ratifying candidates at that point, and I will be looking at evidence into the things that has been said over the years. But what I want to say about this integration agenda, which has been somehow perceived as being anti-Muslim, it's not. Actually, it's all about equality. It's all about breaking down barriers. It's all about integrating people in society. Because as you know, a number of reports recently have shown, Trevor Phillips, Dame Casey, have shown that integration is failing. Communities are becoming more and more divided. And I would argue, and I know the headline from our press conference last week was our ban on face coverings. I would argue that face coverings prevent people from integrating fully in society. So I see it as a positive move. Hang on, next question now.
Since McAvinny LBC, you've talked about the success that UKIP has had in large part to Nigel Farage. How much of a role will he play in this election, and what advice has he given you?
Yeah, I mean, I speak to Nigel all the time, and in fact, I was on the phone to him this morning. Nigel will play a front of house role in this election. You'll be seeing him on TV. You'll be hearing his dulcet tones on the radio. You know, he will be at the forefront of the campaign, and he'll be out there helping UKIP candidates.
Are you worried about being overshadowed by it?
No.
Lucy Fisher from The Times. YouGov polling has suggested that 40% of UKIP's 2015 voters will go to the Tories. Less than half UKIP's 2015 voters will stick with you. Nathan Gill, the former Welsh leader, says UKIP has more ex-members than members in Wales now. Doesn't that all suggest that UKIP is in terminal decline?
No, I don't think it does. And our membership across the UK hasn't fallen really since the referendum. Nathan's talking specifically about Wales, and obviously we all know that there is a bit of a unique situation with UKIP in Wales. As for the polling, you know, there's a 6-week campaign ahead. Let's just see what happens in that time. One thing I'm quite confident about is that our poll ratings will go up. I always suspected that we would take a hit in the first week with the amount of publicity that the Prime Minister has been getting as a result of calling this election anyway. And as I say, you know, vote share is important, but it isn't that important. And we learned that from 2015, whereby we got 13%, 4 million votes, and came back with 1 seat. We've got to target more sensibly this time round.
More important to win MPs than to gain a significant...
Of course it is. I mean, the one thing that our unfair voting system ensures is that there's no prizes for second places in first past the post elections. Yeah, hang on. Yes, and then...
you said the job on Brexit, sorry, John Ashmore from Politics, you said the job on Brexit was half done. When it's fully done, what will UKIP do then?
UKIP will have other issues to campaign on. We'll have a fully fledged domestic agenda. The manifesto this time will be radical on domestic issues. And I think UKIP broke out of that sort of single issue mentality a number of years ago. And I think the 2015 manifesto was an excellent piece of work. Suzanne Evans is writing the manifesto once again and is working away as we speak. And this manifesto, again, will have radical domestic policies, but as in 2015, everything will be costed properly. Yes?
From ITV News. I just wondered what the voters should make of the energy behind this campaign. You're only standing, say, around 100 seats, you're polling single figures, and you seemed reluctant to stand in the first place as party leader. So should people think that this is a gung-ho campaign, or is it a bit lukewarm? That's how it might appear to some voters.
Well, first, I'll deal with the idea that UKIP was going to stand in 100 seats. Heaven knows where that report came from, okay? That is utter baloney, right? We're not going to stand in 100 seats. UKIP is going to cover the vast majority of the country. Now, I've said that we're going to stand down in certain seats for true Brexiteers of all political affiliations, but we're actually talking tens, not hundreds, okay? So UKIP will be standing in the vast majority of this country. As for me, was I reluctant? Well, do you know what? I had a lot to weigh up. And I'll tell you why. Because unlike Jeremy Corbyn and Theresa May and Tim Farron, I'm not in Parliament and I'm not sitting on a safe seat. They will probably visit their constituencies maybe once or twice during the whole campaign. If you're the UKIP leader and you're going to have a go at it, then you have to really dig down within the seat. You have to be based there on a regular basis. We saw that happened with Nigel Farage in the 2015 general election. So I had to have conversations within the party as to how they wanted to run the election campaign. Did they want me more as a roaming figurehead all over the country, speaking to branches and whatnot, or did they really want me to stand in this election and have a go? What the decision I've made is for the good of the party. First, and then over to you, Craig. So Ben.
The protesters who were in here earlier, Paul, they accused UKIP of being a racist party and you personally of being a bigot. They're right, aren't they?
No, they're not right. It's disappointing that certain people in politics don't want to debate. What they want to do is to shout people down in an almost aggressive fashion. And, you know, we're above that. You would never have UKIP members or UKIP candidates acting in such an undemocratic and abhorrent fashion. Yes, Chris.
Two quick questions. How much cash does UKIP have on the eve of the election? Is the party broke? And the second question is, you stood 600 seats in 15 and the same in 2010. Is that the same number this time? If you don't stand against tens, that implies 600 you will contest in 600 seats.
Yeah, UKIP isn't broke, far from it. Okay, so the finance isn't going to be a problem going into this election. And as for standing in 600 seats, you know, we will stand in the vast majority of the country. Okay, there'll be a lot more than 325. Okay. Last question, and then yes.
Kate from ITN. What do you make of this idea put forward by European leaders that if Northern Ireland and Ireland vote to reunify, that Northern Ireland should be allowed to rejoin the EU?
I don't think there's any chance whatsoever that Ireland will vote to reunify. I don't think there's any appetite for that in Dublin, and I certainly don't think there is any appetite amongst many communities within Northern Ireland as well. So I don't think that is going to be an issue at all. Okay, thank you very much for coming. I'm prepared to do one-to-ones in what was described yesterday, by the way, by the Independents as a broom cupboard out the back there. So thank you very much for coming. Cheers.